Hello, comic book fans. Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about the movies and TV shows that are adapted from some of your favorite comic books. I have my very good friend and co-host over there, Brian Coors Hair. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great, Pete.
Whoa, slamming the desk. It's making this thing skip. Perfect. I got Maggie Simpson in my hand. What the fuck is going
Oh,
on?
what the hell?
It's weird for people that listen to this podcast. They might be like, "What do these guys look like?" Well, first off, we're very attractive, and I'm in front of my luxurious mansion room where I have all of my books and collections of my own written works. Right?
Yes.
I'm not in my daughter's bedroom because that is the only quiet place to record at the moment.
No, but you definitely have a Maggie Simpson collection behind you in your mansion there. So
Yes. And I actually legitimately have a Snoopy doll over here, and then there's like Lady from Lady and the Tramp. It's very weird. Like no one ever comments and says, where is this guy filming this shit? But Brian has a real sexy background over there. He's got his many, many Transformers toys. Are you about to add
yeah, these
Deathsaurus?
are real panty droppers back here.
Yeah. Oh my god, Unicorn gets unicorn.
Well, okay, now you definitely just gave away that you're in your daughter's bedroom.
Unicron gets them wet. I was gonna say. Anyway, wow, we are off the rails right away. We're gonna talk about this very serious fucking show,
Oh man.
Andor.
Yes.
We're here to talk about Andor episode 8, Narkina 5. And I'm just gonna keep talking. I'm talking so fucking much. Here's this quote on Twitter that I loved. I want to see what you thought. Andor is great because it's a grounded, thoughtful drama with nuanced characters who at any given moment could meet Jar Jar Binks.
That took a turn, but I agree with
Yes.
it.
Yes, yes.
You know,
I
like
mean,
sometimes
go ahead.
I'm watching this show and I'll see like a weird freaking alien. I'm like, whoa, I forgot this is Star Wars.
Right, right. Does not feel like Star Wars. I said something like this, towards the beginning of the show, where I was like, "Oh man, this is in the same world as Darth Vader. Like Darth Vader could just randomly show up."
Yeah, it's possible. I think you've also mentioned, the Emperor could show up, and I think that's probably a little bit more of a possibility, maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure that'll happen.
Yeah, I could definitely see him making some sort of announcement where there's just like a hologram of him.
Yeah, something like that could work here. I think we just saw Vader with Obi-Wan. We haven't really seen the Emperor, so I think it fits here. I mean, we felt his presence within the last. I think it was the last episode they mentioned that. We didn't get to talk too much about last episode, so
Yeah, we can kind of discuss it a little bit more tonight too.
yeah.
Um, I was going to say though that to timestamp where we are right now in history, Elon Musk just purchased Twitter, so that kind of sucks. Twitter is where I spend a lot of my life. If you guys have ever noticed on the show, but it seems like Twitter. A big deal about it today was, or the past 2 days, was like how much people love Andor. Right? Did you see a lot of that on Twitter?
I haven't actually. I'm not sure why. I mean, from what I understand, everyone I see talking about the show loves it, and like universally says this is the best Star Wars show.
Right.
But from what I understand, also is that not a lot of people are watching it.
Right. That's it.
Which
Yeah.
is unfortunate. I don't. Do I know? Yeah, I guess I know some people that are watching the show, but I mean, I don't know if they're not sold on the character, if they're kind of fatigued with Star Wars in general, or they're just disappointed with previous, more recent works, and then they just didn't tune in for this.
Yeah, I am certainly in the camp that appreciates this show, and I'm assuming that you are as well.
Oh yeah, this. I mean, like I don't want to say it's the best Star Wars show just yet because the season hasn't finished, but it's looking like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, were you a fan of this most recent episode?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I felt that this episode maybe has the potential for being the best episode of this show so far.
Yeah, what I really liked is we really saw all the previous plot threads kind of come together here. We're back on Ferrex. We have the remaining um, team members from the Aldani raid. We have Andor in prison. and then we have we get Saw Gerrera and Luthen talking. So yeah, this is kind of bringing everything together, and it's like simmering now. Before it was, it's getting there.
It's coming to a boil. Yeah. You had mentioned that the previous episode was sort of this like transition episode, and then these next two, right? This episode and then the two after it are all one arc, right?
Yes, and then we'll
Okay.
have a 2-part finale. That's what I read from one of the producers.
Okay, so then I assume that with this arc right here, this 3-episode arc, it's about Andor getting out of that prison.
I'd imagine, yes, and it's funny because I felt like there wasn't like a ton of character development with Andor here, other than just showing what craziness and fascism and and authoritarianism happens under Imperial rule.
Yes, yes.
I kind of like that they went into so much detail on what they have to do, but they didn't actually tell us what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, that is a great point. I knew that you'd be happy about this episode because of what you just said, that like we really see how bad Imperial life can be. The people that arrested him had no idea that he was part of this crazy heist. He just got arrested because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and now he's
kind of like how this all started.
Yeah, yeah. That happens a lot to him and to people connected to him, because like his adopted father, Clem, was also in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he got killed by Imperials.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't know what he's building. But as he's in this prison, he is in 12-hour workdays with a team of men just working vigorously, like trying to put something together. And I thought, actually, I wonder if you thought this. Did you think that they were putting together like those K2SO droids at one point?
Looks like some kind of ship part or something to me, because it's kind of big.
Yeah. Right. Before, like, they put them all together and stacked them up like Legos or whatever, I was thinking that maybe it was like a K2SO thing. But
my gut was telling me it was like a TIE fighter part or something like that, but
right.
I'm probably just reaching there.
Yeah, right. Part of some Imperial machinery. My question to you is, do you think that they have these work crews on like a prison planet making this stuff because maybe the Empire associates machinery and droids with like the Separatists?
No, I took it as that they needed things built, and it's part of their escalation of all these sentences, so they can have a free labor, essentially. Like who's going to stop them, because they're the ones in power right now. So
Yeah, I mean the Empire uses droids, but they don't use the droids that much. They use manpower for the most part.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Like that was the clones were a separatist thing. I'm not the clones, the battle droids.
Yeah.
And then the clone stormtroopers subsequently were more the Empire's game.
Yeah, like in some of the major science fiction pieces, of our time, usually when there's an empire, they usually go with having people as like the workforce and the soldiers and stuff, and not robots. And it's usually because of some past, great battle or extinction event, like that happened in Dune, where like there was this thing called the Butlerian Jihad, and they got rid of all the robots that had taken over. In the game Warhammer 40K, you're not allowed to make robots. They're sort of considered sacrilegious. So it seems like whenever there's an empire, it always involves manual labor. And I think that's a really interesting point. It's maybe a coincidence. I think that Dune sort of inspires all of this stuff, right? Because Dune's from like the 60s. But, when you think of empires and you think of like ancient Egypt and building the pyramids, and that's all just like forced manual labor, right? Yeah, even our own American.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Right. And it kind of blows my mind. And that was one of the things that people said on Twitter a lot, was that this show is essentially this like allegory for living under fascism, and it's just right in our faces. And they're just getting away with putting it on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So, what did you want to say about the previous episode? Do you remember anything?
Okay, before we jump off this prison scene, though, I wanted to mention too that there was another character They made an appearance in this show.
Yeah.
Sergeant Melshi.
Okay.
Kind of a minor character, I suppose, but he was in Rogue One. He was with the rebels when they freed Jyn from that prison transport, where the heck she was in, and he was also at the battle at Scarif at the end there, and dies around the time that Bodhi Rook dies. But he's called out by name in the thing there. I thought that was cool to see that kind of a deep cut there, and I had to look that up. I saw that, but I just had that inkling that somebody here's got to be somebody.
Yeah.
So and that's who it turned out to be, other than Andy Serkis.
Right. And I gotta admit that like my imagination was going a little wild there for a second. I just assume it's the actor who just used him for a different role for Andy Serkis, right? But my imagination was, oh my god, did like the Emperor take this guy's genetics and use him to make the Snoke clones? Something stupid like that. But,
I did go down that little rabbit hole there temporarily, but much like Mephisto, I think that's not happening.
Yeah, but Andy Serkis, man, like he deserves credit because I think he's a phenomenal actor. Besides his part as Gollum, I mean, another amazing motion capture thing for him is Caesar from Planet of the Apes. But even when he's just playing a regular human, I think he's pretty fantastic.
Yes, just don't ask him to direct movies about symbiotes.
Yes. And they just announced, like a couple of hours ago, that they got another director for Venom 3.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a woman. Unfortunately, her name didn't really come up. I mean, doesn't ring a bell.
I've seen a lot of just random rumors and theories about stuff going on Marvel, DC, and Star Wars the last couple of days.
Yes.
Other than like the big news items that have hit this previous week, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Right.
But maybe we can mention those later too if I remember them.
Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah, that's part 2 of our episode because you guys know that we cover usually 2 things on this channel. After we finish Andor, we're going to go talk about all the big Marvel and DC announcements. So yeah, good point bringing that up, my man. So we were talking about Andy Serkis and how great he was. He's essentially like the head of the floor that Cassian is assigned to. And there's all these crews working. And essentially, if you are the least productive or like the slowest working crew, then you get shocked by the end of the day after your 12-hour work shift, which that just sounds awful.
Yeah. Yeah, they make a passing comment. It's like, oh, terrible that you got shocked twice in your first day.
Right. It just must be this fucking miserable sensation to feel.
And the reward for doing well is taste in your food.
Yes.
Like, holy shit.
Yes. Just miserable, scary, horrific stuff. And one other horrible detail is that the floor, I think if you step on the floor at night, you just die, right? You just get shocked to death.
They say the floor's hot, and I just assume that the electricity setting is just turned all the way up, and
right. So scary, man, but so good.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about this prison a lot. Let's kind of jump into the other scenes too. This makes me really want to watch Clone Wars. It makes me really want to watch Rebels because there's crossover. Like Saw Gerrera, who was in Rogue One. He's also, I think, in both of those shows and this. Now.
Yes, he's in both of those shows, and he was in Jedi Fallen Order as well.
Wow, he gets around. And I'm assuming Forrest Whitaker voicing him like every time, or
I think he did actually. Yeah,
Forrest Whitaker is like he's sort of like this actor that's not given as much credit as he deserves. I think everyone knows him, but I just think he's a phenomenal talent. I mean, I loved him in Last King of Scotland, and it goes all the way back to The Crying Game. I think that's the first time I ever saw him. But in this particular episode, man, he really got me worked up in this episode.
I always associate him with his acting status with like Ben Kingsley. Like sometimes, I think Ben Kingsley's a really good actor too, but he sometimes takes some really weird roles.
Oh yeah,
and they kind of like gives like a lopsided view of their actual ability.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I mean, I can't think of any of the weird roles he's taken right now, but he definitely has.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
I've never seen Ghost Dog, and I know that's like a big one for him too.
have I seen that? I don't remember. That was like at least 10 years ago, if not more.
Oh, like 20 years ago, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Saw Gerrera, from when we first see him in Rogue One, which is my only time I've seen him, he's an extremist. He's considered an extremist by the other rebels, and they don't really want him to be a part of the rebellion because he's too extreme. And we know that like horrible things have happened to him, and he's kind of had to rely on technology to stay alive, kind of like Darth Vader. But then in this episode, it turns out that he's even kind of picky about who he allies with, huh?
Well, yeah, in Rogue One, which I actually just rewatched today.
Okay.
He's the one that won't join the alliance. It's not the other way around, really. I mean, yes, he's extreme, but it's like he wants to do it on his own, sort of, and he is more extreme, and he won't join them as well. So it's consistent, at least.
Okay. He's like, you guys are too soft, right?
Yeah.
I don't join you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write down like exactly what he said, but he did this whole speech about the rebellion, and he kind of talks about how these other factions that they were going to bring into the rebellion, that Luthen was going to bring in. He kind of pointed out their motivations, and even though he's using sort of Star Wars gobbledygook, he's like, oh, they're separatists, they're this. It sounds like nonsense, but you can kind of glean from what he's saying that it's like, oh, well, this is sort of like a right-wing militia, and this is like a hate group. You can see sort of the real world analogies to what he's comparing it to.
Yeah, it's just it's literally all walks of people, walks of life banding together against the Empire because it's that bad.
Yeah,
what's that old saying with friend? I forget it.
What, the enemy of my enemy?
Yeah, my friend. Enemy is my friend, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, no. I can't remember if Saw was one of the separatists during the Clone Wars, because he's from the Clone Wars time.
Yeah, I don't know, because I haven't seen any of those either. So again, more incentive for us to go back and watch those shows.
Hey, I'm down, man, whenever. But you have this scene where Stellan Skarsgård and Forrest Whitaker are together in this cave, and Stellan Skarsgård is trying to sway him to start working with this other rebel guy. Stellan Skarsgård, I've already said on this show, is just this phenomenal talent. And to see him talk to Forrest Whitaker and try to sway him, and then Forrest Whitaker kind of calls him out and he says, like, well, who are you? And Stellan Skarsgård just basically, Luthen says, I'm a coward. And I just thought his delivery was perfect. It's a perfect line for him to say. And he goes further to say that, he's essentially afraid of the Empire becoming so powerful that there's nothing they can do about it. And I think that had the first Death Star not been destroyed by Luke, I think that's what the Empire would have become.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what did you think of the scenes with Ferrix and the people that live there?
It was good to see those characters again. They hadn't totally left them behind. You see Cassian's friend, who it was like the miner or whatever. I can't remember his name. And we see him interacting with his adoptive mother. God, what's her name? I forgot her. Marva, yes. And she's kind of losing it, and they're trying to get her to leave off planet there, and it just they're back there because some of the other characters are there looking for clues to where Andor is, and it's just funny that they're not going to find them there.
Yeah, bad timing for them. That's Vel and Cinta are the ones that are looking for him. That were part of the heist, and I don't know if it was sort of revealed in previous episodes, but like Vel and Cinta are a couple, and I know that nowadays that's not a big deal, like to have lesbian characters, but I think that's pretty progressive for Star Wars. I think like the only time there was any kind of gay interaction in Star Wars live action was the kiss that's at the end of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I saw a few articles about that pop up, mentioning that they made a big deal about that, which I don't know if they've made a big deal about it, rather than someone asked if there was going to be any inclusiveness in the movie, and they said yes, and then it got blown out of proportion. But yeah, but this was great because it's subtle. They're just people, and then whatever, that's what you have to do because that's what everybody is, a person,
Yeah, exactly.
But I really like the little back and forth they had there, and the jab that Cinta throws at Vel. Maybe I'll be a rich girl running away from my family or whatever she says. So it gives them a little view into her potential story and why she's with the rebellion that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah. The whole idea behind them being there to get Andor is because he has information on Luthen. And was there ever talk of Luthen? Like, did Luthen ever say, like, hey, after this is done, you have to meet with me or you have to debrief? Or, like, is there a reason why Luthen trusted Andor, but now he wants him to get killed?
No. So Luthen realized that he's a liability because he knows too much.
Yeah.
And because he kind of like rushed him into that operation a little fast and furious, and he realized he was being a little too risky. Yeah. So his assistant, whose name I don't remember, that contacted Vel in the previous episode, she sent them to essentially eliminate him, to eliminate the risk of anyone tracing anything back to Luthen and exposing the whole rebellion. So I'm curious to see where this goes here, because it seems like, he's very far off, and we know he ends up with the Rebel Alliance. So
yeah. And I completely forgot that the guy Karn was able to connect Cassian Andor to Luthen too, because there's that scene in like the second episode, I think, or maybe the third, where Andor has a gun on him, and Luthen is right next to him, right?
Oh yes, that's right. I thought you meant the guy he shot at the end of the heist, but yes, Karn. He was there. He didn't get a look at him, but he heard his voice from behind because they snuck up on him.
Yeah, I mean, Karn, man, he is making his progress. We had a scene with Karn and Miro this episode too.
He shot his shot, man.
He shot his shot and he got shot down, man. Yeah. Miro, though, such a compelling, awesome character. I was just watching.
Yeah, she really went full dark side here. Full fascist. This past episode with all the her report back to that whole council, and then even dealing with Karn too is like, he's kind of treating me like he's incompetent, and
yeah, she got the information from him, and then it's like, he wants to be a part of it, and she just like shoots him down. And then one of my favorite scenes, this is an episode. Yes. This is an episode full of very high points, and one of my favorite scenes was when
Oh, Pete, you're frozen.
Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, you're good now. You're good.
Her friend who works at the hotel was captured and interrogated, and Bix is there with her subordinates, and she says, I want her to see him. Then they bring in Bix, and she sort of acts like, oh, get him out of here, like she's not supposed to see him. So I love that little, acting there. I think that was great.
Yeah, very devious.
Yes. I just watched an episode of Star Wars Explained. He does like little YouTube quick videos too, and he was talking about how Miro essentially was pointing out that a flaw the Empire has is that each sector is controlled by like a single person, and they don't work as like one big full unit. And so the rebels actually kind of exploit that. And the guy from Star Wars Explained was saying that how like the rebels would strike in one sector, then leave, then go strike in another sector. And because there's that sort of that idea of like, whatever, it's like a Moff or whoever controls the sector, it's like their sector, they don't usually work together and like send their resources to other sectors, And I think that's really interesting.
Themselves to advance themselves, yeah.
Whereas the rebels are the opposite. It's like the rebels, everyone is together,
Except Saw Gerrera.
Right. He's like, fuck those guys. They're weak. They record videos in their daughter's rooms like weirdos. That's my Saul Guerrero impersonation. So what else you got, man? You got anything else to say about this episode?
No, I don't think so. I guess we didn't talk about Mon Mothma at all. She's still having a little dinner parties, and and she's still trying to launder that money out of her family's accounts via that her banker friend. Um, I think in your notes here you wrote something about her daughter keeps kind of showing up in opportune times during these
Yeah.
conversations that she might start being suspicious. And I think I agree with you that they laid out the husband to be potentially villainous, but he might be more of a red herring, and it might be the daughter that forces her hand.
Yes. And in that scene where we see the daughter and the husband, she's talking about her Chandrilan life. She's from the planet of Chandrila, right? And she mentions how she was married at like I think the age of 14. I think she said.
Oh wow, I didn't hear that part, but
Yeah, essentially. So I mean, okay. So I was going to ask you, don't you think it's kind of interesting the things that they kind of choose to focus on in Star Wars, like the sort of little ancillary, like non-important things that they kind of always bring back and they focus on, like blue
uh,
milk, stuff like that.
yeah,
Like, don't you think
yeah,
it's kind of interesting what they pick?
yeah. Wait, you about that worm drink?
Well, yeah. There's that, right? They talk about how it's gross, but what I'm getting at is Chandrila is kind of similar to Naboo, I think, because Naboo is this beautiful world and it's sort of this sort of like democratic, like advanced culture, right? And it's just this beautiful world, and people seem to be rich there. Then Chandrila seems to be the same as Naboo, and I know that they said that she was a senator when she was like 14, but then she was married even before she was a senator. They talk about that in this episode.
Okay, maybe I wasn't paying attention as much as I should have that part, but
You were playing with your Unicron back there.
shit, you got me.
No, but like I just thought that was a really interesting little note because it just reminds me of Queen Amidala and their weird system on Naboo where they like elect a queen and it's like a teenage girl, right, as opposed to like a full grown woman. It's like there's these weird customs that they have in Star Wars, and I guess they're kind of comparing Naboo to Chandrila.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Just like I like when they go into depth about the planets, especially even like the human planets, because it's like, oh, they're kind of different from ours.
But maybe not.
But maybe not. Yeah. And all the human planets, like all the people, the humans came from one source, but they sort of like spread out and
Yeah, like
colonized
countries
other
filled with
worlds.
planets.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so we did all that stuff. If you guys have not liked and subscribed, we would love the like, but we'd also love for you to subscribe and talk about Andor because it'd be nice to get another voice on here. But now I think that Brian and I can talk about some announcements.
Yeah, there was like a ton of almost dueling announcements between Marvel and DC this week.
Shots fired, yes. Which were the most? Which were the more exciting ones?
Man, I think I gotta give a point to DC here.
Good.
Make it a
That's
bit
the
of a
right choice.
Flash. We knew. Last spoiler alert. Superman came back in the end of Black Adam, and I said in our review of that the announcement, the real life announcement of that was more exciting than the fictional announcement. Like
Yes.
I'm not excited at all about Superman and Black Adam fighting at all. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about Henry Cavill coming back.
Yes.
And he kind of made it official on at some point on Monday or Sunday night or something, saying that he's back, and this is just a taste of what is to come in the future. And I also read that he had a choice in picking out the costume that he used in Black Adam. So for all the people that were wondering why wasn't in the black suit or something like that, that's why he's in the blue suit. Henry Cavill wanted it. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. But that in itself is an interesting thing. The DC movies are so inconsistent with their lore and their tone that they don't feel like a cohesive thing like the MCU movies. And if he was to show up in that black suit, that would lean more towards the Snyder cut. Whereas that blue suit, his typical suit, is more like the Joss Whedon Justice League.
Yeah,
know?
from what I understand, the Snyder Cut is still like it's essentially Elseworlds.
Yeah,
That's not the canon version. So
yeah, which is unfortunate because I think that the Zack Snyder cut is better. You know?
yeah, I definitely agree it's better. But I mean, neither are amazing.
No, no. I mean, do you think that there's that many major changes from either version?
Um, there was a significant change in tone with the scenes added. I think
Yeah, like tone and style, yes. But as far as like
there were some
what
plot points too. I mean, I think the Superman plot point is fairly different.
don't they still dig him up in the fucking cemetery and like
Yeah, but they kind of make a joke about it prior, in the one version and not the other.
oh
Um, and I guess I think they spend more time with it in the Snyder cut, and it feels a little more somber because I mean he's all like angry and crazy when he comes back. They do
right.
less of that in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Um, like with the exception of Joker and the Batman, there is the idea that all of these movies are in the same world, and that Black
Yeah,
Adam is in the same world. And so I'm guessing that Superman is going to come back and that he's going to have his own standalone movie in that world too.
I hope so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so then that leads to the other major Warner Brothers announcement, right? You want to tell everybody that one?
Yeah. So the next announcement, which was a couple days later, and like I mentioned, there were some dueling announcements here between Marvel and DC, and I really wonder if they were done because the other one was announced back and forth.
Right, right.
So the DCU,
Yes,
no longer the DCEU,
correct.
has found its Kevin Feige's in
Yes,
James Gunn and Peter Safran.
yes, yes, yes. And when you told me that, I said to share that with Danny and Chris because I thought they would be super excited, and they kind of didn't respond. But um, it was because Peter Safran is a producer on most of those Conjuring movies.
Yeah, I saw the list of his Conjuring and Annabelle and all those. So that's interesting that how both of these directors kind of have roots in horror. I mean,
Yeah,
they're not direct. He's not a director, but you know what I mean.
yeah. Well, I had this thought today while I was like kind of driving around for work, but I think that when we create stories in our heads, especially for making movies, we're using existing imagery from things that we've seen. And I think that it's very easy to take imagery from like established comic book movies and sort of shoehorn in other characters into it, right? But I think that one of the reasons why horror directors make really great comic book directors, and even like Peter Jackson was like a horror director before he made The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I think that the reason why that works is because I think their mind is like looking at different imagery and they're sticking that into superhero, like they're kind of, that's the foundation that they're putting their superhero stuff on top of. And I think it just makes it far more compelling than like someone that has just always kind of made those types of movies. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
there's definitely a unique form of tension in most horror movies, and I think that goes very well with superhero books in terms of stakes and tension.
Yeah. Would you say at this point that James Gunn has made the same amount of superhero movies as he's made horror movies?
Yeah, it's pretty close, I'd say.
Yeah, because James Gunn has made. I mean, he's probably even made stuff before this, but I'm pretty sure it's Slither. And then he's made, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. He made that movie that you love with Rainn Wilson, Super, right?
Super. I love
So,
Super.
so Super and Slytherin, but Super is kind of like a horror movie too, but it's a comic book movie.
Yeah, because it's really grounded and it's really violent.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of dark tension in that movie. And
yeah,
yeah, man, some crazy consequences too. Yeah, but I mean, Slither, I would put in the obviously in the more horror realm. But I mean, he worked for Troma previously, so I mean, that's where he cut his chops,
Yes, and he wrote that Dawn of the Dead remake, which we watched
Yes.
together when I still lived in Staten Island.
And you know what? And you know what? He wrote the two live action Scooby Doo movies, which are a lot more rooted in horror than you'd think. You know?
Right. So he definitely is a horror guy. But I mean, he's made a lot of superhero stuff. He's made, Peacemaker and The Suicide Squad and both Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Well, we got three and a holiday special, so.
We might talk about that soon too. But I guess my question to you is, do you think that James Gunn is the right man for the job to helm essentially something that would have like Green Lantern and Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman, like these iconic heroes? Do you think he's the right man for the job?
So I don't. I think that this is a combination of DC getting a Kevin Feige and DC kind of replacing Zack Snyder as kind of like the visionary here, which is something that Marvel didn't necessarily have. It's just really Kevin Feige is like this like uber producer, and I think they're the co-chair aspect of it is kind of replacing, kind of mimicking his role, but also replacing Zack Snyder creatively. Because I mean, everything really is based off of Man of Steel for the most part. And I think we'll see a shift. I mean, maybe it'll be more like Suicide Squad or Peacemaker, but not totally, but maybe a little more serious. Not serious isn't the right word. God, I don't know how to describe his the tone of his movies.
Like they can be kind of graphic if that's what you're getting at, or no?
Yeah, not graphic, but like they're I don't know.
Okay.
Gone.
No, it's okay. I mean, and I also think there's movies that he was involved in too. We mentioned Scooby Doo. He also did this other movie called The Belko Experiment, where he was like, I believe, a writer and definitely and that seemed like a very disturbing movie from what I've seen.
I recognize the name, but I don't remember too much about it.
It was that movie where, and it had a couple of his like regulars in it too. But it was a movie where this office building is like shut down, and the people are told they have to kill each other in order to not be killed.
I remember that now.
Right. So there's the Belko Experiment, and then he also did that movie Brightburn, which was almost like a Superman horror movie too. But he was just, I believe, just the producer on that. I don't know if he wrote it too.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He definitely didn't direct either of those two movies, though.
Interesting.
So, but
I'm looking forward to seeing what these two together can put together and make out of the DC universe with the kind of tangled mess it sort of is.
Yeah. I think that James Gunn has enough respect for the source material where he wouldn't make like Batman feel like Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like he would make Batman feel like Batman, and Green Lantern feel like Green Lantern.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I guess those are the two announcements for DC, and then you also mentioned the DCU now too. Should we go over to the Marvel side?
Yeah.
Cool. So, speaking of James Gunn, he has the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, which comes out when?
Thanksgiving Day. Oh no, the day after Thanksgiving, I think actually. 25th.
Okay, well, we'll have to review that shit as soon as it comes out. What'd you think of that trailer?
It looks like a big stupid Christmas movie, and I think it's kind of like a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
The premise is essentially Star-Lord is sad, and they want to cheer him up by giving him an Earth-based Christmas, and their gift seems to be based around actor Kevin Bacon, which they've made a couple references to over the previous Guardians movies.
Right. I have always kind of wished for that day when the Guardians were on Earth and just sort of being like fish out of water or fishes out of water on Earth. I kind of figured that was coming in a Guardians movie. I know that they've been on Earth before in Avengers Endgame, and like Rocket Raccoon has sort of been with the Avengers too. And they, they were also in they interacted with people from Earth in Infinity War too. But It's just fun to kind of see them like on Earth, kind of partying around,
Yeah, and it seems to me like I mean maybe there was the trailer, but there seems to be a bit more of a focus on Mantis and Drax,
Yeah, yeah,
um, who I think deserve it. They they had a bit of a um, they seemed like they were going to be in Thor: Love and Thunder a little bit more than they actually were.
yeah.
So maybe this is some well earned screen time for them.
Right. They certainly get the shorter end of the stick out of all the Guardians in Infinity War and also Endgame, and then in Thor: Love and Thunder as well. Because if you think about it, like Nebula has a really big part in Endgame. Rocket Raccoon has a very big part in Infinity War, right?
And Groot has a pivotal moment in creating Stormbreaker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like they're kind of the two that haven't gotten that much attention. So it's very good that they're getting the attention this time around. The shot of Kevin Bacon like running down the street and they're just sort of like bouncing behind the fences, that looks like straight up out of a comic. Like that just looks like
Yeah.
a bunch of comic book panels in a row. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, that'll be a fun thing for you and me to discuss. I think we both like Werewolf by Night. I think we'll even like this more.
Yeah, I'm digging the general idea of these special presentations, these like one-offs, and
Yeah.
I really see a lot of promise in more of these coming down the road here. I've even heard a couple of rumors. I'm not sure how true they are or not.
Right.
Um,
So what are the other ones that you've heard?
I heard Silver Surfer.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I've definitely heard that too.
That
Yeah.
seems the one that seemed the most credible, I think. But I also saw some ridiculous ones where, which I think would be awesome, but I don't think are true yet. That they would do that for individual members of the X-Men prior to an X-Men movie, which I think would be great.
Yeah.
But I think that's like people just making clickbaity news because they want to hear anything about X-Men.
Right.
And we're not really getting it.
Right. I figured. Do you think that like for Silver Surfer, it would actually be like an animated special versus live action?
I don't know. I don't know how they would do that at all. I mean, his whole thing is space travel. And at the same time, it's like, how do you factor in Galactus there? Is this post Galactus? Is it prior to Galactus?
Yeah.
Are we just going to see Norman Rad?
Yeah.
And maybe Galactus comes. But,
Yeah.
I don't know if that is the right way to introduce that, I think it'd be better if this was post Silver Surfer transformation, and a more it's like a smaller tale, a little more personal rather than being the Herald of Galactus.
Yeah, it'd be cool if it was like sort of like a prelude to him being in like a Fantastic Four movie or even like an Avengers movie, like some sort of like event movie, and it's just him surfing the spaceways, like maybe looking for like a planet for Galactus, but you don't see Galactus, and he just has like a little mini adventure on that planet.
Yeah, I feel like they got to do Galactus in a movie. They can't do that in a TV show.
No fucking way. No. Yeah, we need to see Galactus.
And Galactus better not be a cloud.
No, fuck that. No, he's a big guy in a purple helmet, and you see that on the fucking IMAX screen.
Yes.
All right, so that brings us up to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Brian,
Yes.
I was kind of underwhelmed by this trailer.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's two characters, not one, getting a movie, because these characters are not well known enough to headline their own movies necessarily.
Yeah.
But it looks interesting. I'm excited for Kang being in it. I don't really understand how the quantum realm was tying in with Kang and all that. There's a lot of speculation about the rings in Kang's device being tied with the Mandarin's rings and possibly even Ms. Marvel's armband. They all look kind of similar. So that's kind of exciting. And I'm very curious why Bill Murray is there.
I think the most exciting part was when you saw like this group of people kind of come up off the side of this mountain, and there was this creature that had sort of like a spyglass, or not a spyglass, like a searchlight for a face.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like a buff version of that lamp from the
Pixar.
Pixar, yeah. And someone was like, "Are these the Micronauts?" And they can't use the Micronauts because
I don't think so.
they're
No.
right, Hasbro. But the Micronauts were Marvel at one point. They did sort of show those characters coming up during a part when like the music kind of hit this crescendo. So I think they were making it seem like it was a big revelation. Now maybe it was a big revelation because they're saying like, look, there's people that live here. That might just be it.
That's
But
kind
I
of
was
what I'm feeling, yeah. But I couldn't imagine who else could show up here that they haven't already shown. You know?
yeah, yeah. It's weird when it comes to the microverse because that's where I think that Ant-Man actually goes in the comics versus the quantum realm. Like I don't think that Scott Lang Ant-Man in the comics goes to the quantum realm when he shrinks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point there. I mean, maybe that's just a way of kind of raising stakes and tying it in with larger MCU or Marvel MacGuffins.
Yeah. Well,
I
I
mean,
think
quantum
go
is one of those words like sci-fi technobabble. You just throw in front of it and make it sound smarter than it really is.
yeah. I mean, they freaking make that exact joke in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's true. You're right.
Like, yeah. But we see that there's some sort of secret that Janet Van Dyne has about the quantum realm. What do you think the secret is?
That she was banging Bill Murray and they created that little lighthead guy.
I do think that she probably was banging Bill Murray. I don't know if
Yeah,
she
I think
didn't.
that's probably pretty accurate there. But that can't be the only thing. Like that can't be. She seems very terrified,
Yeah,
and that can't be why.
right.
It is interesting though that she, I mean, we knew how much time she spent there and how much she aged, and we really didn't get a glimpse of anything of how she survived. So I'm curious to see what compelled her to leave, and what is that thing that she's so scared of? I mean, maybe, is it Kang? Does she know of
Yeah,
Kang's existence?
yeah.
Um, and then also, what? Why does Kang need Ant-Man? What? I mean, they made a point to point out that he's a thief, and what does he want him to steal?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. Yeah, I'm assuming it would have to be something that maybe has to do with the Avengers. We got to talk like big picture, right? Because I think that's where they're going with Kang is that Kang is so connected to the MCU.
Multiverse,
The what?
the multiverse.
Yes. But like, it's not just that he's this like guy that's from the far future and he's this random guy. Like Kang in the comics is like a descendant of Reed Richards,
Yeah,
and like, I think that they're gonna do some kind of play on it where either he is a descendant of Reed Richards or he's connected to another character in the MCU. But I think that they're gonna try to um connect this with other MCU stuff, And like this is the first film of Phase 5, right? I think
is it?
Wakanda Forever is the last one.
Like you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So obviously there is an interesting thing about Kang being cast as an African American man. Like I think you could kind of do these different things with it where and or Reed Richards could be African American too, which is cool, and then Kang could be his descendant. But you could like tie him into a different character, but have him be connected to the MCU somehow. Like I think the idea behind Kang is that he is the creation of the status quo in the MCU. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, makes sense.
Because like everything seems to be a consequence for them using time travel to uh, write the Thanos snap. That's what the whole Phase 4 kind of seems like.
Yeah.
You know, um, and so like you already kind of mentioned this before, but like we read this article where they were talking about how his rings are or the sort of like the ring design that we see a lot of in the trailer is like the ring design in Ant-Man in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And then also in the Ms. Marvel show, when they find the band that she uses, there's the 10 ring symbol like on the ground around it,
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So is the I mean, given that the Phase 5 ends with Secret Wars, is are they just building up that all these different universes, and then the snap is going to be the consolidation of all of them into one? I mean, is that going to be what it is?
I do think so. I mean, the thing that's been the biggest sign of like Secret Wars is coming is where they talk about incursions in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like, whoa, this is the Jonathan Hickman run right here of Avengers.
Yeah. I think too that the idea in the comics. I think the idea for me of them consolidating into one universe is not exciting. I don't like it. I love the idea of all these hundreds of millions of billions of alternate realities and things to be different anywhere. It's just a lot of creative freedom for writers and all that to give us one-off stories or whatever, because they have a lot more freedom to do with the things they want with the characters they can't normally do in a continued continuity.
Yeah.
Continued continuity. Yeah. God, I'm stupid.
No.
But I think it actually could be potentially exciting here because I mean, maybe that's how they bring the X-Men in.
Oh,
that's how they connect all the side properties. The older Hulk movie or the Netflix shows, whatever. It's like this is what it does, and that actually is kind of exciting in a way.
Oh yeah.
I think it works for that because I think there is a finite amount of things that are going to be in the MCU. Comics are going to go on for a lot longer. This is eventually going to stop at some point.
Yes. And I just want to point out too that the way that you're sitting in your chair and also the way you've been moving your hands and the fact that your shirt is black, it's kind of made you look like you're the Emperor over there. Like
there will be a finite amount of MCU movies, but there will be more Star Wars movies.
Oh no, that's horrible. No. Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Oh God, it's hard to do that.
We've talked about the fact that the X-Men actors, like Michael Fassbender and the other people from like First Class and stuff, have contracts that go until 2025, right? And so Marvel is most likely not going to make the X-Men be in the MCU proper until after that. But of course, that leaves room for, and we already know this from like Deadpool and Deadpool 3, that like you could have an alternate reality where these older actors are in it.
Yeah, I mean, we know Deadpool's coming in 2024.
Yeah.
So that's clearly before that 2025 limit. I mean, that's probably why they probably threw a whole bunch of money at Hugh Jackman to do one more movie.
Yes,
they could do it, And Ryan Reynolds isn't getting any younger either. He's older than us, I believe, a couple of years older than us. So,
oh man, he's old.
I mean, I don't know if he wants to start like a fresh Deadpool franchise necessarily with the MCU here.
I agree, but like, luckily for him, when he's just Wade with his mask off, he is under a ton of makeup, right? So he doesn't have to be like sexy, good-looking Ryan Reynolds. I don't think that anybody associates that character with anybody else. Whereas with Wolverine, it has always been about who's going to play Wolverine, even before Hugh Jackman played him. Whereas with Deadpool, it's just always been like Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even though to me, Wolverine is absolutely more iconic than Deadpool. I think he's going to be a lot harder to replace.
Yeah, right. So I think what I think will happen to Deadpool is in the original Secret Wars comic, it comes down to there is just the regular Marvel universe and the Ultimate Universe, and then they finally fight with each other or crash into each other. And the only survivor of the Ultimate Universe is Miles Morales. What I think is going to happen is it's going to be the Marvel Universe, the MCU, and the X-Men franchise universe. They're going to crash into each other, and the only survivor is going to be Ryan Reynolds Deadpool.
Yep, probably right.
Yeah. So, I mean, but this is what is it? This is going to like 2026, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows if the fucking world will even be here by then? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Cool. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Did you have anything else you want to say about the
Yeah, there's
announcements?
just a lot of other rumors floating around.
Go
So
ahead.
one, the DC Green Lantern show is now going to focus on Jon Stewart instead of Guy Gardner. I don't know if that means Guy's not in it anymore, but that was kind of a thing. I just made a joke about Star Wars movies, but I saw some rumor that they're making another sequel to the sequel trilogy, like a 10th movie that may contain some of those characters.
Right.
I don't know how true that is, but what were the other things I saw? I already mentioned Silver Surfer, and there was another one. What was it?
The Star Wars one is like a standalone movie, I think is what they're saying. Like it's not necessarily going to be a trilogy.
Yes.
They were making a point to say that they're not trying to make trilogies off the bat. They're trying to like make a movie and then see how it does. And that it might not have like Rey. It's not going to deal with the Skywalker saga, right? And I think that kind of eliminates Rey, even though we all think it's lame. Like, our name's Rey Skywalker now. So I think if they're saying it's not the Skywalker saga, she won't be in it. But I think you could see Finn or Poe, and I think that you could especially see Poe since Oscar Isaac has talked about he would like to make another Star Wars film.
Yeah, I wouldn't even honestly even eliminate Rey as being part of it. It's they can go in a bunch of different directions, but I think ultimately what it is about is redeeming that trilogy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of fans turned, especially in that last movie there, and even I guess the whole trilogy really. Everyone has something to say about it for the most part. I personally really do like The Last Jedi out of that the most. It completely doesn't fit with the other two movies, but I think it's the best one out of the three.
Right.
So I think they're just looking to revitalize that time period.
Yes.
They made a big investment with that, with like Disney World and Disneyland, with the whole Batuu thing, and they have that whole hotel experience that's all based in the sequel trilogy time period there, and maybe they want to drum up some more interest and sell some more tied-in products and merchandise based on it, because of the reception was kind of poor.
Really, really good points. You got to go where the money's going, right? And if they have a resort and stuff, yes, they got to make that appealing. Very, very good point. I didn't even think about that at all. Because, I mean, they are going to continue to make Star Wars movies that take place in all different time periods of Star Wars. We know we're getting like a High Republic TV show down the road. And I think that the trilogies and ideas from other filmmakers are still in the works. And I think that even Rogue One is still in the works, even though I'd heard that had been canceled.
I'm sorry, what about Rogue One?
Not Rogue One, Rogue Squadron. That's
Squadron, okay. I was going to say, like, how are they doing a sequel to that?
Yeah.
Isn't Andor the sequel to that? Even
right, the prequel, yeah. But that's what made me think that, like, you could bring back Poe because, they could maybe focus more on pilots in this new movie that they've announced. And then that might be like a connective tissue to a Rogue Squadron movie, Or
maybe that's a combination of the two things. They're just taking what was going to be Rogue Squadron and just putting it all on Poe and leading some kind of squadron of rogues.
That would be pretty hot, actually, yeah. So we are pretty much right at our time that we like to keep it at. But I've enjoyed talking about Andor with you, and especially all these announcements. Apparently, we had a lot to talk about with these announcements.
Yes. Yeah, we talk more about that than the show, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. But Brian and I are always here to talk about all these adaptations. That's what our whole channel is about. So make sure you guys subscribe, and please comment too, because we love to hear from you. Next, we'll be back for some more Andor, and we're still kind of playing out what we're going to be talking about besides that. But we know we got Black Panther coming up too in about 2 weeks. So
wait, that's not? Oh no, it is 2 weeks. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So
man, I'm getting pumped for that now.
Yeah, ditto. So until then, we will see you guys next time.